What's up, everybody? This is Talkative Carl back again for another Christmas movie review. And today we'll be talking about Home Alone, the first good Home Alone movie of the many that came out. And of course, there was a recent one that came out for Disney Plus. And no, I have not watched it, and nor do I pretty much care to even look at it. And I heard other people reviews of it, not good. I mean, it's not gonna. Yeah, if you have like toddlers, you can plop them in front of it. It's harmless, and you can just leave them with that while they play with their toys, kind of situation. But if you want to sit with a good Home Alone film with your kids, without being mentally degrading, you can definitely put them in front of this movie, if they want to see an actual good movie. Then, of course, Home Alone 2, I'll get to that, but that's actually, solid as well. But after that, you know, decent people would treat like the rest as non existent. But this starring Macaulay Culkin, one of the first big mega child stars of the 90s. And of course, Macaulay did, after, this and Richie Rich, he was in the first Richie Rich movie. He definitely, you know, child stars, especially during the 90s, growing up with that massive celebrity, I don't think anybody blames Macaulay Culkin about because it's just a product of Hollywood. It's like sometimes they just when they get child megastars, they don't churn them out in the best of ways. I mean, like, it happened to a lot of people, like Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, it's a Amanda Bynes. It's a handful of child stars that got famous really fast, and it's kind of like they didn't have the proper tools to handle it, which is unfortunate. But I mean, he's on like they all on like a proper in there, living, really well, and they doing better and everything like that. So in the end, it turned out fine. But man, that was like a while before they got there. But yeah, I mean, but people remember Macaulay Culkin fondly, and he definitely, you know, uh, treats the role he was in very fondly. And it's like he makes jokes about it. There's been like several skits or commercials over the past couple of years where he, especially during the holidays, poking fun at like the monotony of, like, if you really think about it, a kid home alone and like going what he went through. It's like that would never happen realistically. I remember one I think it was a commercial or a skit. I can't recall, but he, Macaulay Culkin was in like I think it was like a back of a limo or something, and he was talking with the driver, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he's looked like he has like PTSD about how like he had to. His parents leave him home alone, and he's like, had to defend his own house from burglars, and it was like extremely traumatic. It was hilarious, and like it's like I like that he liked to joke about that every once in a while. But he's been like I think last year I heard he was in like one of the Paris Fashion Weeks or something like that. I didn't even know he was in like into fashion like that. But like he's doing well now. But yeah. So enough of the preamble. The movie begins with like this is set in Chicago, with this house in the suburbs, which, By the way, a couple weeks ago, I only found out that the very house that they used to film Home Alone is like up, not up, for market or anything like that. Like, they selling the house. They treating it like almost like a Airbnb in a way where you can like rent uh to use the Home Alone house for like an overnight stay kind of situation. And I mean, it's pretty dope, but it's like I think this long since passed already. But I thought that was pretty dope. That's how much like people, revered this first movie. It was like a blockbuster hit at the time. It looks like it uh, in the box office grossed $476.7 million. That's how huge it was at the time. At least it still is. But the movie begins with, a cop slash burglar played by Joe Pesci watching, this house full of people scrambling around, getting everything like trying to ready for their Paris trip for the Christmas holiday. And this is some like, very rich, privileged ass people. Because I swear, because like, because everybody was so curious to know, what does Kevin McAllister's parents do for a living to afford a huge house like this? Because they have like a bunch of their relatives there, but I think it's like Kevin has his older brother Buzz, and I think an older sister. And I'm not 100% on the sister part, but I definitely remember Buzz. Everybody remember Buzz, and one of the iconic bullies of cinema history, and his parents. So, at a generous 5-person in a household, this is a freaking mansion. How do they afford living like this? It never made that much sense, because the father or both parents had to be in some shady stuff just to be able to afford a house this large. And it's just that's how I'm, me and a lot of people, if you think really hard about it, that's how a lot of people feel. It make no sense. I can't imagine the bills. But the way these people treat Kevin, I always thought this, even as a kid and up to this point, I always thought the way this family treats Kevin is some BS. I swear. And it's like, who talks to the kid? I mean, like, you expect this from the children because they're children. And I remember when I was young, like, I got hassled by, cousins and what have you. But you think like the adults in the house would be a little bit more mature? It's not like cartoony mean, except for Buzz maybe, but it's just that I think there was an uncle who was like giving Kevin like the riot act. It was like, like calling Kevin names like, your father's is paying good money for this trip. I was like, I think Kevin called him a cheapskate. I'm like, he is a cheapskate. Look, like, he just like mooching off. Like I said, what does his father do to afford like a trip to Paris on top of having like a freaking mansion to house so many people? He has to be in some shady stuff. I remember him being on the actor who played Kevin's father was on an episode of Law and Order, not SVU, I think Criminal Intent, and like, some kind of stockbroker or something like that. I think he was the bad guy in it. And it's like, if they somehow connected, even though it wasn't the same name, if they somehow connected, it makes so much sense if he's like a stockbroker into some shady stuff. And that's why he could afford, such lavish, living quarters along with a Paris trip on Christmas. Not on Christmas, but during the Christmas holiday. But uh, they all scrambling around, and like they, Kevin's like, slightly the youngest one, and he's need help packing, and nobody. I mean, like I understand. It's like, some of the kids you expect them to be like a little mean, but if one of the adults asked one of them to help Kevin pack because he's young, it's like I remember I had to help my youngest brother, with some stuff because he's too little to do certain things at the time, and it's like, I don't berate him like, fix it yourself kind of situation. No wonder he has. It's no wonder what he does with these criminals later on. It's like he's unleashing his sadistic side because he got a shitty ass fucking family. I want to say shitty in like a traditional means, but just like, superficial means they kind of like just mean. Of course, like love the kid, but it's like, like wow, it's just like, no wonder like he behaves the way he does. Like he has to be, because he has the attitude of an adult. He's pretty much like have to be like the more level-headed, mature one out of the bunch of imbeciles. I think like not like the well, the parents are definitely have some intelligence and some level of maturity, but just like I don't know. Yeah, and I guess the holiday season they trying to plan this trip and they get everything together, but it's some freaking poor ass planning. Where they like spending like the night before. Cause I remember when I took my Vegas trip, I made sure I packed my stuff, like at least 2 days before, at least know, or have the clothes that I have in mind set and ready for me to, that I want to wear for my trip. So that way, it's set aside, let's say it's set aside, 2 days in advance. Then the day before, okay, plop them in the suitcase. They make it seem like it's like Tetris and you got like organized in a specific way. It could just take 3 minutes out of the time to show Kevin how to pack his stuff and be over and done with it. But this is me thinking of on a level of a mature adult. But be that as it may, they eating pizza, and it's like they, it's a house full of people. Once again, if you have like a large dinner with family involved, you make sure the littlest children are fed. It's like babies and on up, because they cannot get a plate themselves or feed themselves. Well, Kevin can feed himself, but it's like he's the youngest. He, will more than likely will take the highest priority to make sure his plate is ready. Like you have big ass Buzz, feeding his fat ass self. I mean, it's just like, and no wonder he got into a scuffle with his brother because he was just like a complete D-bag. And you'll see when I do the second review how like, he just like, I don't know, just, I don't know, it's just weird. It's like they just, completely ignore the fact. I mean, like I've been there. It's like, some people just, I mean, I can sympathize into Kevin a bit, where it's like, I'm trying to be level-headed. I'm trying to, behave maturely and stuff like that. But it's like, like a parent or a guardian or like, people, just people, like opposing me or whatever, like outside the whole situation, would just still lay blame to me, if that makes any sense, that kind of thing, which is kind of annoying. The fact that it's like, like clearly you see like, like I'm not the one who held at fault here. Even if I share some blame, I shouldn't still get the full animosity. or the attitude or whatever. And it's like, you know what? Kevin snapped. And then, of course, he berates his mother after she sends him to the attic and stuff like that as punishment. And he wishes that, he was just home alone. He don't want to be, he doesn't want his family. He would rather be by himself, which is understandable, for a kid his age, despite his attitude being a little like, some, kids mature a little faster, but he's still a kid. And he's saying something like out of anger instead of a parent being a little understanding. Like the mother should be a little bit more understanding on his part, given the fact that you have a big ass family. Don't know if she has siblings of herself, but she should, understand, or at least talk to the kid, not like, not talk down to him, but talk eye to eye with him, like, because he's obviously like, a kid. He's not dumb at all, but it helps to talk on his level. And like, this is an issue with me, and I think a lot of people, when it comes to like certain parents or adults in general, never like to take, fault of their own, because I'm not sure if they just see as like you don't want to look weak in front of your kid, or your kid you think it can take advantage or anything like that, which is horseshit. The fact that the mother is to say like, I get it, Buzzing, is a little idiot, but he still loves you. I still love you. Here I save some pieces for you, like but like you shouldn't got into a fight with your brother, and I'll go talk with him. But you say here, it's, make sure like the kid can be seen. I'm trying to find the right words. Can see and understand like he's not being dog piled on. Like they treat him like he purposely went on the table and took a big dump all over the pizza and laughed at everybody's face. Like that's what they treat him like he did, instead of like acknowledging what had happened in its entirety. But later at night, the power lines got messed up during like high winds. The alarm clocks they set didn't go off the time that they wanted to go off, so they overslept. So they're rushing out, and they end up leaving Kevin home alone while they already on the plane to Paris. And it wasn't until they land when they realize, they don't have Kevin. Of course, Kevin is having like a ball, just jumping around on the beds, running, up and down the hallways and everything like that. And it's like something like most kids would enjoy, where it's like you got a house to yourself for the first time, and you just want to like just do whatever you want without any kind of bother. It's kind of something I want to do from my own place. It's like I just want to do whatever the hell I want in my own place, kind of situation. It's like he eats ice cream, and probably watched one of the best in movies in cinema history, where it's like this. I don't even know what that freaking film is called, nor the sequel we see in the Home Alone 2, or this black and white 40s movie where it's just, you get so much comedy mileage out of. I don't know what that movie is called, but everybody and their mom want to know like, what is that movie, and like, can we see the entirety of it? But you also see it in Detective Pikachu, which is like very like bizarre but funny, but it's like, what is this movie? Somebody figure out how to make this movie a thing, bring it to life, so we can all get the context of like like get down on your knees and tell me you love me. I give you the count of 10 to get your lying, no good, lying keister out my door. 1, 2, 10. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal, and a Happy New Year. And it's like, that entire thing is funny. It's played in the right way. Of course, this is directed by Christopher Columbus, so he knows how to do, comedy. Kevin is like sitting and watching this while eating like a whole thing of ice cream. He's going through his brother's stuff, and he sees this like, kind of chunky girl, just like staring very bug-eyed into the while the picture's being taken, and it's like, woof. Not to put shade on a girl, but it's like, it's not a flattering picture. Let's just put it like that. So you see Harry and Marv, the Wet Bandits, played by Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, and of course they've been casing the neighborhood. As soon as like any homes are completely vacant when the families are gone for vacation, they break in and rob the place. And they had the McAllister's home on the list. Now, initially they plan on breaking in, but Kevin sets up, he has some engineering qualities about him, because I can definitely see him growing up to be like an engineer or something like that. Because the way he set up, like, train sets to move cardboard cutouts around, and just like certain things on pulleys, just to make it seem like people are in the house when they're not. And there's a lot of cardboard cutouts. That's the funny thing. But yeah, it's just the way everything is set up. There's balloon, people or something like that he has. Of course, it's like the way it's set up, tricks Harry and Marv to not break in. But later on, they come to realize that, this kid is obviously home alone. Now, before we get to that part, which is probably like the best part of this film, is the trap sequence. You get this thing with Kevin and and this neighborhood, or at least the neighbor, at least a neighbor, this old man that looks, creepy, because people, kids in the neighborhood making like horror stories about him, thinking he's like a serial murderer. He murdered his own family. That's why he's like alone. But Kevin finds out that, obviously it's like a very sad story where he is estranged from his son, and he has a granddaughter he never met, but he wants to. Kevin convinces him to like take that leap, because I'm pretty sure he believes like, your son probably misses you too. And because of the old man, he shows that, he shows Kevin that family is important, even during the days when they kind of drive you nuts. They're still your family, and you still care about them. Now, keep in mind, while that is true, it's also true that sometimes, in like, certain small circles, there are family members you just cannot just deal with at all, and they're not good for you mentally, or maybe not, maybe mentally, or maybe financially, or physically, or emotionally, or all together. And sometimes you gotta cut off certain people like that, whether it's friends or family. And that's just the truth of the matter, because though both things can be true. And of course, they don't have to mention it in a movie like this, but it's like something to keep in mind if you dealing with any individual, friend or family, who's becomes like, despite your efforts to amend the relationship, or build it up, whatever. If it's like a constant thing, I mean, I'm not no mental health expert or psychologist or anything like that. You can definitely go and see somebody about this to get like a professional opinion. But, given like, certain experiences and stories I've heard, and it's like, and other wiser people than me, there are very rare occasions where, like, depending how often over the years and, like the, constant, it's kind of like breaking up with a person that's obviously not good for you. And despite the, promises of changing and they don't act on it, it's the same thing. You probably just have to cut them loose because they're going to be not good for you, and they'll drag you down kind of situation. But with those words of encouragement from the old man, which I gotta just be honest with you, I get the purpose of the old man, but honestly, to this day, that is the most boringest part of this entire film by far, at least personally for me. I don't know about you. I do not care about the whole thing with the old man. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's other ways for Kevin to come to realization about how, like, family is important, and because he's already starting to miss his family and everything like that. But it's like this, thank God, it was like I usually skip this part because, like, honestly, I do not care about this old man and his problems. I don't know. Maybe this is the way it's been presented or the way it's conveyed, something like that. But it's like I never felt anything for it, which is weird. Clearly, you're supposed to feel. I'm not feeling nothing from this dude. I don't care. Honestly, I never did. So, fast forward to, like, Kevin. Now he's like setting up the traps for these crooks. And honestly, for the first few minutes into these traps, these guys should be in a freaking hospital. This is like a mark of a sadistic Jigsaw-like serial killer. Whereas, like, again, shoot with BBs, they're slipping on ice, which most of these injuries, they're something being broken. Like, I seen a doctor on YouTube reviewing like the injuries of Home Alone, and it's like a lot of these they should be in the ER. And it's like my favorite one is when Harry's going through the back door, and like there's like a big blowtorch and it's setting fire, which he just stands there and just like just for a hot minute without just moving as soon as he feels like the intense heat. And he goes back and just dunks his head in the snow. Or when he put his hand on like a really hot doorknob, it left the imprint of the M from McAllister on the, from the doorknob onto his palm, which realistically, probably would heal. It was only first degree burn. So I don't know about, like, this shouldn't be like a scar like we see in the sequel. At least I don't think. But honestly, I think the blowtorch one was probably my favorite trap. And just a side note, when I was a little kid, when I saw this movie, I legit tried to set up my own kind of Home Alone traps as a little kid. Like, one being, I think it was at least 2 or 3. But the one I distinctly remember is, it was I was living with my grandmother, me, my little brother, and my father when I was a little kid. The second oldest brother, the youngest one, wasn't born yet, because me and the second oldest brother was little kids at the time. And my father lived, with his parents. He was like a close-knit kind of, immediate family with my, my father's sister living next door with her family, and his older brother living just around the corner from us with his boys and wife. So we was pretty much like a very close thing. Oh, and then we have like his second cousin literally just down the street, and with her daughters. So we was fairly close at the time, and uh, I remember, uh, getting the garden hose out and you know uh pouring like water over the porch steps. It was like rocky porch steps, and like hoping it freezes overnight. And I expected somebody to like slip and fall the next day, and none of my traps worked. Now it's probably a good thing that it didn't work in retrospect, but I was kind of disappointed. I was like, I didn't care. I didn't really care who I got, to be frank with you. I just wanted to see if it actually worked, but none of it worked. I was like, damn. I was legit disappointed. Like, damn, none of it worked. It was like, that was, very unsatisfying. But yeah, the porch slip and fall, the, blowtorch thing. Now, the one I think I cry foul on is the time when, Harry and Marv slip on these, little, Matchbox car toys and fall on their butts. I'm like, okay, I can buy most of these traps, but that one I call shenanigans because, like, do you have peripheral vision? Of course, in the sequel, there's another situation where they fall into a hole. Like, dude, do you have like peripheral vision where it's like my desk is right here and I'm looking straight ahead and I lean in close. I know when to stop because the mic is literally right here and the desk is literally right here. I don't have to look directly down to see it. I got peripheral vision. So that I call shenanigans on. Like, come on, dude. You can step around those. Those are, that was like a little, I thought it was funny still, but it's like, you can walk around that part. You're not that dumb. But then there was another funny moment where it's like he, hit these guys with paint cans and just knocked them on their butts, which should also, either break, which it did kind of break Harry's gold tooth out of his mouth, but it should have did a little bit more damage, like up in the front portion of the, like nose or whatever like that. But these guys really go through the ringer. And matter of fact, they should be freaking traumatized. Matter of fact, Marv stepping on like a big ass nails, sticking up from one of the floor steps in the basement, and he didn't just step on it like one quick boop, and he feels it. He literally it got in he's stepping so like carefully where it's like sinking in by an inch, and it's like, and then he falls back down, and I'm like, that is still like intense. He definitely had to check for like get like get a tetanus shot or something like that, because you don't know, obviously with the tar and like it being probably an old nail, you don't know what's on the kind of grimy stuff that might be on there, so you probably have to get a tetanus shot from that. But like you can feel that thing, but hear that thing sinking into his foot by a good inch. It's like a squish sound, and I was like, oh god. But then he pulls down, like trying to turn on a light, but he pulls down and like one of the irons falls straight. He looks up and falls straight to his face, which should have cracked at least a little bit on the the skull is very durable, like probably one of the few of the most durable parts of your bones. That should have caused something, because it landed straight on his forehead. But if that didn't crack anything, him falling flat on the ground with his back of the head hitting the ground so hard, that should definitely like at least rally your brain a little bit. Because this is like it's fun, but it's like after all this other stuff, when people like doing deep dives on these kind of injuries on Home Alone, it's like Yeah, these guys should, at the bare minimum, be having a concussion and should be going straight to the hospital. I mean, after the first situation with, like, maybe not the hot doorknob, but when I'm getting blowtorch on my head, I'm calling it quits after that. Like, this motherfucker got fucking traps in here, and it's like damn near killed me. I'm getting the fuck out. Fuck this kid and this house. I don't need this contest that doggone badly, but they just going ahead for it. I mean, despite their idiocy, they got some balls. I gotta give them that. But Kevin ended up calling the cops while the mother's making her way back with other conventional means, because all the flights are booked up for a couple of days, like at least the flights directly from Paris back to Chicago. So during the couple of days, the mom's taking one flight to Dallas, then another flight to Pennsylvania, and then getting like a ride with John Candy, who has a cameo in this, the late John Candy, and getting he's a part of like a polka group, getting a ride from them, which he kind of offers some words of wisdom to the mom. I usually don't remember or retain his discussion, but she learns a bit of like appreciation for a kid, like a mom with her, a relationship with her child, an appreciation. So Kevin's ended up calling the cops, but Harry Marv finally got the kid, but thanks to the old man who shows up, because Kevin runs to I guess it was his house he ran into. Then old man took a shovel to Harry and Marv's head, knocked him out. The police come, arrest them, and then next day, the family finally, the mom shows up first, then the family shows up, and they it was like legit like love and appreciation that Kevin is all right. Despite him being alone, he handled himself. And you see like the movie ends with Kevin waving to the old man who reconnected with his son and granddaughter. So yeah, I mean, despite wouldn't say well, my gripes are with the family. I think the people like to give Kevin shit for being like kind of like a sadistic asshole with the traps, but there's a cause and effect in play here. And my gripe is coming from the family itself, especially the uncle and the older brother, when they treat like even more like shit. And like the rest of the family really shouldn't really be talking to him like that. I know it's like, they're, most of those kids, like the oldest and like, compared to him, and like I like to mess with my little brothers too, but it's like I have some freaking compassion as well. And like as much as I enjoy messing with my little brother, it's hilarious, yes, but I know where the line is, and I still have like concern for him, that kind of thing. But yeah, but besides that, it's still a great movie, very well written. I think every time I revisit Home Alone 1 and 2, it's usually the middle part that kind of like when he's like meeting these wise people that's trying to teach him a lesson about how appreciating family and friends and blah blah blah, and it's like that kind of my eyes kind of glazed over, even though I know it serves a purpose. But it's like you doing like the first act, and then the third act, mainly with the traps, is where my interest lies, and I kind of skip over usually part way through the middle. I kind of skip over most stuff that I really don't give a crap about. But after the trap portion is over, that's when like I kind of checked out of the movie, to be honest with you, because once the trap sequence is over and done with, it's like, well, yeah, that was fun, and now I'm done. But I mean, it was. Despite that, it's still like a solid film. That's just my personal take on how like I watch these films to this day. But anyway, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow me on the links in the description below. And a little bit, I will be reviewing Home Alone 2. I'm gonna do 1 and 2 back to back, and I'll let you know my thoughts on that. And yeah, I will see you guys in a little bit. I still got at least a few more movies to do before Christmas, or at least up to the point of Christmas Day, because I want to wrap up, my Christmas movie reviews with Scrooged on Christmas Day at the latest. So I'm gonna probably have to get like at least 2 movies done, and by the time Christmas Day rolls around on Saturday, that should be all wrapped up. So I will see you guys in a little bit. Take care.